My name is Risa Morimoto, and if I could be any animal, it would be a bird. I've always wanted to be reincarnated as a bird. There's something about being able to fly anywhere you want and having that freedom of the wind underneath your wings. It's been a joke amongst my family because I do say that I want to be a bird and that I'd probably end up becoming a penguin or something like that.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 49. I'm Harold Rhee.
And I'm Nancy Rhee. Today's guest is the amazing Risa Morimoto, documentary filmmaker and television director. Risa and I became friends when we both started out working at a Japanese bank in New York City. It was pretty obvious from the start that neither of us belonged there. I left banking to go to graduate school, and we've been friends ever since, and she was the maid of honor at our wedding.
We interviewed Risa's husband, author Paul Griffin, in episode 43, and in today's episode, Risa shares some pretty incredible animal rescue stories in her travels as a filmmaker and television director. If you want to learn more about Risa Morimoto and the various film and TV projects she's working on, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/49. That's the number 49.
I am a second-generation Japanese American, born and raised in New York. I have always had this compassion, this insane love for animals. I don't know what it is. I haven't always owned animals. My husband and I currently have 3 dogs. We're not allowed to have any more, according to him. Although if it were up to me, I think we'd probably have a lot more. I've known Nancy for, we're talking 30 plus years. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I also direct episodes of House Hunters International, which a lot of people know, which brings me to a lot of different places in the world. Last year alone, I was in 19 countries and 25 cities. So it was pretty insane.
Awesome.
And the show has really taken me to some very, very interesting places. And with that, I get to see a lot of fun stuff, but I also get to see a lot of sad stuff as well. But it's opened my eyes to a lot.
How did you get into filmmaking in general? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it?
I was living in Japan in the early 90s. My then boyfriend and I decided to go around the world. We decided to travel to 14 countries on our way home back to New York. And on that trip, I took a video camera for personal use only. And I was just amazed at how we could capture these moments in time forever. There was a particular moment when we were in Nepal and small little village, and there was a family that had just gotten their first TV. And the whole village came around and was watching this TV. They were all so super excited because of this box. In a way, it was really exciting, but in the other sense, we who have grown up on TV knows that the purity of that village was now going to disappear. Once I came back to New York, I actually had lunch with Paul, my husband, and his dad. We were just discussing kind of future and career and whatnot. And his dad said to me, he's like, why can't you be creative and make money at the same time? I'm like, who does that? My dad is an artist. And so that's what I grew up in. That was the world that we grew up in. My dad was a graphic artist, and then he became a sculptor. And, for Christmas, we'd get colored pencils and art supplies. I mean, that was our life. I mean, when we went on a family vacation, it would be to an antique shop or a museum. It always had to do with art. And so I always loved being creative, but I just never thought that could be a career path for myself. And then I met a documentary filmmaker by the name of Christine Choy. She was a successful documentary filmmaker at NYU who had been quite successful in her career. And she was Asian American. She was an Asian American woman. And I just found that amazing. And I said, to myself maybe it is possible. And so from there, I started studying documentary filmmaking at NYU and worked there to get myself through grad school. Then I ended up running a nonprofit for Asian American filmmakers called Asian Cinevision that runs the Asian American International Film Festival out of New York. So I was really very heavily deep into the Asian American filmmaking circles. Made a feature-length documentary back in, now 2007, called Wings of Defeat, which was about kamikaze pilots who had survived the war. I was just hooked. I just loved the ability to create something, be able to tell somebody's story. And the thing with documentary is that you really make these real lifelong relationships with these people. These kamikaze pilots are now in their 90s. At the time, we're talking about 10 years ago, Ena-san, for example, he's one of the lead characters in the film. He had survived his crash and lived to tell about it, and has been adamantly committed to peace in Japan and peace within the region, and not militarizing again, and just a huge advocate for this. And it's been amazing kind of being in touch with him over the past 10 years, how much you get to learn yourself about a topic that you knew nothing about. And you're working at the same time and creating and sharing this experience with other people. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, I wish it were a bit easier. I mean, there's a huge number. You can't make a film by yourself, so it takes a number of people and it takes funding and that sort of thing. So there's not fun parts of it as well. But I think that even with my work with House Hunters, getting to meet so many of these families, many of whom I'm actually still in touch with, which is fun, and getting to see their adventures and how they're continuing to grow and live abroad and living this free life. And one of the most profound experiences on House Hunters International for me was we documented a woman, an American woman who moved from Las Vegas to Chiang Mai, Thailand, and she had volunteered at this animal sanctuary, this elephant sanctuary in northern Thailand. So we got to film her there. And I cannot even begin to tell you how amazingly transformative it was. I went to Thailand in the early 90s. I did the elephant ride, and I did all those things that are quote unquote fun, but you don't realize how abusive it is to the animals. And so it was a huge eye opener for me to see 41 elephants that had once been trekking elephants or circus elephants just be able to be elephants, and you're not allowed to touch them. They go around. It's, I think, something like 400 acres. She has like 200 water buffalo, 400 dogs, 600 cats. I mean, it's crazy. What this woman, I believe her name is Lem, has done in that region is pretty amazing. And just trying to educate people on how to protect the animals, the native animals in Thailand, and then also, how to not proliferate the problem by going on these animal rides and that sort of thing. That was through House Hunters International. That wasn't even, you just never know where you're going to meet these people. Another episode of House Hunters that I did in Mexico, there was this little dog that was just roaming around the streets, and she clearly had had many, many puppies. I mean, it was just so sad. And so I shared my breakfast with her. So I had like a breakfast sandwich or something. And of course, she gobbled it up. And the next shooting day, we were in a totally different neighborhood, and she showed up again. And it was just so profound. And so at that point, I was like, oh my God, I think I need to do something about this poor dog. So I had actually I researched some animal rescues in the neighborhood, and I'm a big advocate for spaying and neutering. And if there's anything, I just want to make sure that they could be spayed. If I can't take them home, then at least they won't continue to have babies. And it also helps prevent a lot of diseases. So I was able to get in touch with this one. She was a Canadian woman who had started an animal rescue in this region of Mexico, which was amazing. And the problem there was that I couldn't find the dog again. I was hoping that I would be able to and I could bring her to her, but I looked and we were also shooting at the same time. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to help this one little dog, but you just realize that there are resources out there. It's just trying to connect the dots and making sure that people know and things that people can do to try to help the problem, trying to prevent animal cruelty or whatever it may be in just your small little way.
Talk a little bit about your 3 rescues right now that you and your husband, Paul, have in New York City.
Homeless animals, they just come up to me. I don't know what it is. I have found cats in my life and dogs in my life, so much so that my husband's just like, stop. You've got to stop. And I'm like, I know. Our little one, Eddie, he is a little Lhasa Apso, adorable, and but too smart for his own good sometimes. I found him walking to the post office, and in the city, he had no collar. He was filthy and clearly skinny, and he was following a squirrel. I looked around and there was nobody around, and I thought that was really strange. I followed him, tried to climb up this tree barking, and of course, the squirrel got away. And I just bent down and he came right to me. So he was clearly owned by somebody. There's this kind of myth, or I don't know if it's a myth or a fact, that oftentimes, if an elderly person passes away and somebody goes to the apartment, they'll just like open the door and let the dog go instead of like going through the proper protocol to kind of find another home for that dog. So I don't know if that's what happened to Eddie, but he's a Lhasa Apso, so I know that he had been owned by somebody at some point.
Sure.
Especially in the city, a small breed. So we took him to our vet and got him cleaned up, because you also don't want to bring in a dog that you don't know into your home that you already have animals in, because you don't know what kind of diseases they may have. So our vet was very kind enough to keep the dog, groom him, clean him up, and we were committed to getting him a home because he was cute, he was small, he was easily adoptable. We already had 2 dogs. We didn't need a third. And so then we brought him home after he got his shots and was fostering him for a bit. And by the end of a week, I believe, we had like 5 couples that were interested in him. Paul says to me, I think Jason and Ella would be perfect. We should definitely give him to Jason and Ella. And I started crying. I was like, I cannot give this dog up. I just gotten too attached. That was the end of that. So this is the problem. I'm a huge foster fail. And Ray came from the Bronx. He was he's a pit bull, sweetest pit bull you ever would want to meet. And we think that he was probably trained to be a fight dog, but just didn't have the fight in him, and then was probably released or something. I don't know. But he was 24 pounds when we got him. He's now like 65. And he was actually basically on death row. And at that time, our prior dog had passed away, and Paul felt I didn't even actually go with him to the pound to select a dog. He went by himself. And it was between Ray and this other dog, and they were both on death row, scheduled to be euthanized within that week. So Paul's a kind of unofficial dog trainer, and he really has an amazing sense for dogs and does like his simple behavioral tricks, right? To see if the dog would be compatible with other dogs and to see how submissive the dog would be. One thing that he always does is once he meets the dog and gets a little bit comfortable with them, he holds them upside down. And if they're willing to be held upside down, that is a really good sign. That means that they're willing to be submissive to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a simple thing, because a lot of dogs are not willing to, and they'll fight you on it. But you can train them to eventually submit to you. But it's a simple, thing about holding them upside down. And he did it right away, just holding them like a baby. He had a really long tongue, so his tongue kind of stuck out of his snout. So when Paul called me, he's like, yeah, this is a really great dog. I don't know. I think we should get him, but he just has this weird thing with his tongue sticking out all the time. And, we don't care about that kind of stuff. I mean, if anything, it's become so endearing, and he's the most popular dog in the neighborhood. It's so crazy. And the newest member of our pack actually came from House Hunters International. I was on a shoot last January, and she had 3 puppies. Mimi, our third dog. She is from Panama. Her official breed is called the Panamanian Street Dog, so they don't even know what she is. She's like a medium-sized, 30-pound, blondish. She's clearly a mix of everything. We were shooting at this house, and there was a crew that came to the house to shoot a couple months prior. And during that time, she had these puppies, and the crew started feeding her. And so they stayed. So they were stray dogs. And that's what happens, of course, right? That's with any dog. If they find the food source, that's where they're going to hang out. When we got there in January, we were only there for 2 days, but she was there with her puppies, and the family had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. They were playing with the puppies, no problem. I mean, they were throwing around these dogs like there was no tomorrow, and I was like, that's amazing, because these are stray dogs, and clearly they're being desensitized to the human touch, or sensitized. At the end of the shoot, I went up to the mother, and I just asked her to please, I gave her some money, and I said, please just spay and neuter these dogs. You see, I mean, especially in Central America, there's so many stray dogs and cats, and so many of them are just clearly malnourished, and it just breaks my heart. So she said, sure. And because you can get dogs spayed and neutered for about $25. I mean, it's pretty cheap. Yeah, $25 to $50. A lot of them have like these clinics where they run, weekly or, bi-monthly, that sort of thing. So she did. And I thought that was the end of it. A few weeks later, she said, I cannot keep these dogs here. I'm opening up a bed and breakfast. They're going to have to go. And so we researched. No animal rescue organization could take them because they were already packed. The only other option, and they also don't euthanize, and the only other option was to abandon them on some mountain somewhere, and where they would definitely either be eaten or just die of starvation.
Right.
And you have to drive them far away enough so that they can't find the home again.
Oh my gosh. Just sounds so harsh.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. So it's like morally, I'm like, I know these dogs. I don't know how I just couldn't allow that to happen. So the woman who directed the episode, who had been to the shoot, the couple months prior, I touched base with her. I called her and she said, all right, well, let's bring them up to New York. I was like, oh, okay. What do you mean? And so we set this plan, and there was a couple of more friends that we knew who were very animal rescue supporters. Basically, we raised money on CrowdRise, which is like a GoFundMe type of website. And It was amazing. We raised like $1,000 to bring these dogs up.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was there was somebody who had anonymously donated, and he actually was on the show.
Oh.
And that's how he found about it. But I had no idea who he was. None of us had any idea who he was.
I mean, on that same episode or on another episode of House Hunters?
On a different episode.
Really?
But I guess because of our outreach, did it through we found these dogs through a shoot on House Hunters International. These people had been on a prior show, loved animals. So they had donated a chunk of money. And so we raised this $1,000, decided, okay, well, now we got to figure out where they're going to go once they're up here. But my first hope was really to keep them down there. They were from Panama, especially the mom. She was already probably, 2 years old or whatever. And I was a little nervous about how they would survive a New York winter. Would we be able to find proper homes for them? They were just used to roaming around, no collars and that sort of thing. We managed to find a home for two of the puppies. A Canadian couple had just moved down there. So it was perfect. So we just had the mom and the puppy left. We struggled to try to find them a home. And this is all with the help with the woman who was already living down in Panama. And so she actually called me and said, okay, well, I actually have found this orphanage who's willing to take the animals, but if we could donate the rest of the funds to them so that they can buy a new refrigerator.
Ooh.
And I said, fine. I said, that's amazing. No problem.
Right.
But please make sure they're a legit orphanage. I don't like not trusting people, but of course my New York instincts tell me otherwise.
Sure.
Just a couple of weeks go by. Then this other woman who lived down there, who was friends with the woman who was helping the dogs, Facebooks my friend and says, these dogs have been placed at this orphanage, but they're in a locked cage with no food or water. Please help me. I already have 3 dogs. I cannot keep them, but we need to get them out of here. So with this SOS message, Heidi and we had to do something. Meanwhile, this is all happening while we're both on shoots. We're like in different countries and like different time zones and working, 13 hours a day trying to film the show at the same time. So it was just extremely stressful. But we also knew that we had to do something. I mean, we just couldn't ignore the situation. So we just became committed to bringing the dogs up to New York. Researched this whole thing. It is actually a lot easier to bring a dog into the U.S. than one would think.
What are the steps?
Essentially, it depends on the country, but you generally need a certificate from a vet that they've been examined by a vet, and they need their rabies shot, and then they need a plane ticket. So it's pretty simple. They also have to fly within a certain number of days. I believe it's like 10 days from when they get the shot. You don't even have to be on the plane with them, which was amazing because I was trying to figure out ways to like send my brother down to Panama to pick them up and, put them on the plane and all this kind of stuff.
Now do they get put in the cargo? Where do they actually go?
There's a special cargo for dogs. And this was the first time I actually put a dog on a plane. I've always been wary of it. I've heard these nightmare stories, and I just don't like it in theory. And it just made me really nervous.
Right.
In this case, we didn't really have a choice. And I knew that we could get a direct flight. The flight was 5 hours. The other thing is that the dogs also have to be at the airport 3 hours prior to the flight.
Oh my gosh. So got to time the potty breaks and all that stuff. So.
Oh, it's crazy because if you're not that, and that was the thing is that we had scheduled to fly them on April 8th. And there was also a huge, some sort of political leader conference happening in Panama City. So unless we had gotten those dogs out, we had like 2 days to get the dogs out. Otherwise, they would be quarantined there. They wouldn't be able to leave because of the security. Then we would have to get them their shots again because the 10 days would have lapsed. So it was just so insane. So the woman who was dropping the dogs off at the airport basically went to the wrong place because you have to go to cargo, not to like check in or whatever.
Oh no.
So she missed the 3-hour window. She got there. She was supposed to be there at 6 a.m. She got there at 6:15, and they said, no, you can't get it. These dogs can't go on the plane, which is ridiculous to me. So we're texting back and forth, trying to figure out what are we going to do. I begged the guy at United to please get them on the plane the next day because I knew that was the only chance. So he managed to get them on the flight for the next day, and they did, in fact, come. And Heidi and I went to Newark and picked them up, and it was just this amazing moment that I took a little video of with my iPhone, and it was pretty awesome. But the dogs, of course, were completely freaked out. It was a 40-degree day. Of course, I don't think they've ever felt anything under, 75 degrees. So
right. Yeah. From Panama to New York City, right? Welcome to New York.
I know. Here you go. As should have been predicted, but I didn't realize. It was the mother, Mimi, who became our dog, who was more defensive than the puppy. The puppy was like, where am I? What? I'm a little scared, but,
Whatever, right.
Whatever,
Figure
yeah.
it out.
My husband Paul's cousin, Jenna, and her boyfriend, Danny, had agreed to foster the dog. They already have a Rottweiler. So we decided, okay, well, we'll introduce your dog to both of the dogs and see which one she likes better. I thought that, it'd be better for us to foster the puppy just because I knew it would be more work. But as it turns out, the puppy just fell in love with her Rottie. And yeah, so she ended up fostering her for 6 weeks. My friend fostered Mimi for a while, and I was hoping that she would actually end up adopting her, but that didn't work out. So she was kind of thrown on us. Again, we thought we were only going to have 2 dogs yet. Here we had a 3rd dog. So that's how Mimi kind of came into our lives. And Paul was really, really reluctant about keeping her. We'd have these phone calls because I'm like, in Germany or somewhere, trying to convince him that, just one more week, she'll be better. And of course, that's what happened, right? So, a few months pass and she's an amazing dog. She's an amazing walker. She gets both of us out there and make sure we exercise because she has to exercise. And and she's just the sweetheart that I knew she was in Panama. She just needed to not be so scared. Mm-hmm. And that's with most dogs, right? Most dogs.
Sure. Most people.
Yeah, exactly. They get scared and that's when they start to bite or they get nasty or whatever. It's no different from people. Exactly. Yeah. It's just, I've been really fortunate to kind of, come across and learn so much about animal rescue and all the amazing people around the world that are doing this work because it is an enormous amount of work. You see in countries like Colombia where there are more dogs as pets as opposed to stray animals. Because in a lot of these countries still, dogs are considered to be gross and not domestic animals and dirty and, not to be touched. So you do see some education about dogs becoming more and more, or countries becoming more and more pet friendly.
Right.
In life, I just feel like everybody says this, right, about their dogs. It's just, you don't know how they came into your life or why they came into your life, but you know that they were your dogs. They just choose you somehow, right. And then all of a sudden they become the perfect fit. And for every one of our dogs, I mean, we've had 6 dogs since, we were married now 20 years. Every single one of them have just been amazing, amazing souls. We've been just so fortunate to be able to have these animals in our lives. And I feel like anybody who's had a pet knows what that feels like. It's something you can actually really describe. Whenever I go to any of these countries, It's a joke amongst the crews that I work with now because I will always collect everybody's leftovers, and I will always find a dog or a cat, a stray dog or cat to give our leftovers to, because one, I hate wasting food, and two, if I know that there's a stray animal that could eat our food, then why not? It's just my little way. I just feel like there's so many little ways that people can help, whether it's raising awareness and sharing a photo of a dog that needs to be adopted on Facebook, or giving a little snack to a street dog. Doesn't have to be you have to set up an animal rescue yourself.
Right.
I know that could be really overwhelming for people. And one day, that's my dream, is to have an animal sanctuary, but little baby steps.
I'm blown away of your dedication, and really of, you truly did save these dogs from what could have been a dire situation, right?
But it's so sad because, yes, I look at Mimi every day and joke about how she's become this ridiculous princess who only sleeps on cushions, when a year ago she had never even known what a cushion was. I mean, all she did was sleep on dirt. So you do see these starving dogs and that sort of thing. But it's also the abuse that I think that I can't tolerate more than anything. Just pure animal cruelty. We don't even know that we're participating in that. Riding an elephant, you don't realize what's happening to that elephant as soon as you get off of it, and how abused that poor animal is, and that it's chained up and doesn't get to be an elephant. By doing this animal rescue podcast is just amazing, because there are a lot of people who do want to do something, I feel like, in their own little way.
What would be a way for folks to find your work? How do folks look up what you've actually done in front of the screen or on the big screen?
Well, we have a website. It's edgewoodpictures.com, EDGE woodpictures.com, which is a lot of our production work. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram with Risa Morimoto. So I'm up and about, and I like to post pictures. People like to see the travel pictures and that sort of thing. So I do try to post that as much as possible. I'm off to Germany and Austria in a couple of weeks, so that should be fun.
If you did have that sort of magic wand, what would you do in terms of animal rescue?
That's a hard question. That's a really hard question. I would love to have people's compassion instinct just resonate a little bit more. Whether it comes to other humans or animals, just don't ignore, and just recognize that there's, if there's somebody or someone or an animal in need, just to help. It doesn't take a lot for us to do those little baby steps to kind of create a better world and create a little less hate.
We want to say thank you to Risa Morimoto for sharing her story. And we hope her story inspires you that wherever you are in the world, you can always make a difference in an animal's life. If you want to learn more about Risa and the various projects she's working on through Edgewood Pictures, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/49. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a future guest on Paw Print, you can email us at thisispawprint@gmail.com, or go to our contact page at thisispawprint.com/contact. Don't forget to sign up for our 2 free resources from our favorite positive reinforcement dog trainer, Eric Bloom. Simply go to thisispawprint.com/ask. If you want to meet me or Nancy on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. If you want to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Pocket Casts. Don't forget to subscribe or follow to get the latest episodes immediately. We want to say thank you to all of you, our listeners out there, for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on episode 50 on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.